Welcome to this powerful story. Subscribe, share, and become part of a movement that believes in justice, empathy, and the power of storytelling. Let's keep the conversation going and inspire change together. The woman's grip tightened around her phone, her voice rising in urgency as she spoke to the 911 operator. "I'm telling you, this black kid is causing trouble." Her words cut through the air, full of conviction, each one louder than the last. Standing nearby, the teenager, unaware of the storm brewing around him, continued to wait. A black SUV screeched to a halt, drawing all eyes in the park. The city's mayor emerged, her face a mask of controlled fury. The accuser's jaw dropped as recognition dawned, and a tense silence fell over the crowd. The mayor's voice was calm but steely as she cut through the tension. "That troublemaker you're reporting is my son." In that moment, the certainty in the woman's voice crumbled. She had made a grave mistake, a mistake that would ripple far beyond the confines of that street corner. The scene unfolds. Jeremiah leaned against the oak tree in Oakwood Park, the warm afternoon sun casting gentle shadows. He breathed in the fresh air, savoring the scent of grass and flowers as he awaited his mom's arrival. He was content, lost in his thoughts, when a prickling sensation at the back of his neck snapped him out of his reverie. His gaze drifted across the park until it landed on a middle-aged white woman sitting on a nearby bench. Sarah, as he would later learn, was staring at him with open suspicion. She rose from her seat, her movements stiff and purposeful. Before she approached him, her face twisted in determination. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "This is a family park, not a place for troublemakers. Leave now, or I'm calling the police." The sting of her words hit Jeremiah hard, and confusion mixed with rising anger. "Ma'am, I'm not causing trouble," he replied, struggling to keep his voice calm. "I'm just waiting for my mom. I have every right to be here." Sarah's face flushed with anger. She reached into her purse, her fingers trembling as she pulled out her phone. Jeremiah's eyes widened in disbelief. "Please, there's no need for that," he pleaded, his voice quivering. "I'm telling you the truth. My mom will be here any minute." But Sarah had made up her mind. With a grim satisfaction, she dialed 911, never once breaking her gaze from Jeremiah. "Yes, I need to report a suspicious teenager in Oakwood Park," she said into the phone, her voice carrying across the quiet afternoon. As Jeremiah stood rooted in place, a cold wave of dread washed over him. He was being criminalized for existing in a public space. His only crime, the color of his skin. Fear settled deep in his chest as he heard the approaching sirens. He knew too well how such encounters could turn dangerous, especially for young black men like himself. He prayed his mother would arrive soon. The police arrive. The screech of tires split the air as two police cruisers rolled to a stop, their red and blue lights flashing across the park. Jeremiah's heart pounded in his chest. He stood perfectly still, his hands visible at his sides, remembering his mother's lessons about police interactions. He had seen too many videos of similar encounters gone wrong. A tall officer stepped forward, his gaze shifting between Jeremiah and Sarah. "What's the problem here?" he asked, his voice measured. Sarah wasted no time, her words tumbling out in quick succession. "This young man has been loitering for hours. He refused to leave when I asked. I'm concerned about the family's safety." Jeremiah's frustration surged as Sarah distorted the truth. Before he could speak, the second officer cut him off. "We'll get to you in a moment, son," he said, his tone dismissive. The officers questioned Sarah, nodding as she embellished the story, each word tightening the noose around Jeremiah. By the time they turned to him, his anxiety had reached its peak. The first officer asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm just waiting for my mom to pick me up," Jeremiah explained, his voice shaky but steady. "I come here often. I wasn't bothering anyone." "Do you have any ID?" the second officer asked, his hand resting on his belt. Jeremiah's heart sank. "No, sir," he replied, knowing how this would sound. "I'm only 14. I don't have a driver's license." The questioning continued, the officer's skepticism weighing heavily on him. A small crowd had gathered, many pulling out their phones to record, and the thought of this moment being immortalized on social media only deepened his humiliation. The mayor's arrival. Just as the tension was about to snap, the low rumble of an approaching vehicle drew everyone's attention. A sleek black SUV pulled up, and the officer's demeanor shifted instantly as they recognized the driver. Mayor Angela Thompson stepped out of the car, her presence commanding immediate respect. Jeremiah's heart fluttered with relief. His mother had arrived. The officers straightened, and Sarah's mouth fell open in shock as she realized her mistake. The air crackled with tension as everyone understood that this confrontation was about to take an unexpected turn. Mayor Thompson approached with purpose, her voice cutting through the silence. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her gaze fixing on her son. The officers were on edge, their earlier confidence evaporating. "Ma'am, we received a call about a suspicious individual," the taller officer began, his voice faltering. "What made my son suspicious?" Mayor Thompson interrupted, her eyebrow arched. Sarah, now visibly shaken, stammered, "He was just hanging around." You thought what exactly?" The mayor's voice was quiet but sharp. "That a black teenager in a public park must be up to no good?" Sarah flushed, her certainty crumbling under the weight of Mayor Thompson's words. The mayor turned back to the officers, her disappointment palpable. "Gentlemen, did you consider the possibility of bias in the call? Did you approach my son with the same presumption of innocence you'd give any other citizen?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mayor Thompson placed a protective hand on Jeremiah's shoulder. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice softening. Jeremiah nodded, the knot in his chest loosening. "I'm okay, Mom," he replied, his voice steady despite the lingering fear. "A community awakens." Mayor Thompson addressed the crowd, her voice resolute. "This incident highlights the need for comprehensive anti-bias training in our police force and community. No child should feel criminalized for existing in public spaces." Her words resonated deeply, shifting the atmosphere in the park. Sarah, now humbled, mumbled an apology, unable to meet anyone's eyes. The mayor didn't hold back. "I hope this serves as a wake-up call. Your unfounded suspicions could have had serious consequences. We must all examine our biases and work to create a community where everyone feels safe." As the mayor guided Jeremiah toward their SUV, she turned back to the crowd. "Let this be a lesson. We must do better, and it starts with each of us confronting our biases and standing up against injustice." Jeremiah, still processing the events of the day, felt both pride and relief. His mother's intervention had not only protected him, but had sparked the change their community needed. A call for change. The incident in Oakwood Park had left an indelible mark on the community. Mayor Thompson's bold steps ignited a firestorm of conversations about racial profiling and the biases that continue to shape their lives. In the days that followed, debates raged in the local newspapers, town halls, and on social media. Jeremiah's story became a catalyst for change, reminding everyone that silence in the face of injustice was no longer an option. Conversations about bias and prejudice spread across the city, reshaping the future of their community. As the sun set that day, casting long shadows across the park, one thing was clear. The path to real progress would not be easy, but it had begun. Join us in making a difference. Subscribe, share, and become part of a movement that believes in justice, empathy, and the power of storytelling. Let's keep the conversation going.